would you really want to know? Would you really want to know if it's your government that's behind all these atrocities and all the suffering and all the harm and the problems that have gone on? Would you want to actually know if it all came back to the choice of a few people in power? And I think that has some parallels to this pandemic right now, because I definitely see that there's a lot of things that were exacerbated through the actions of people in power. Are you looking
you want me to just go ahead and say it? I'll say it blatantly. It's very possible that we started the pandemic because Fauci under the NIH and other people, Peter Daszak is another one, were running and supporting to some degree, even though they say it's not gain of function because they changed the definition and then said we're not doing it. It's very possible they had a hand, not purposely, I'm not suggesting purposely, for this story in the first place. So would you really want to know? If that were the case, and I think there's a lot of people that this is where a lot of people don't want to know. They just don't want to know. They'd rather not get into it.
I think that's a genuine thing. And that's kind of the question that this movie puts forth in a more subtle way. It's that it's not so much the problem with the authoritarian regime itself. It's the fact that many people might prefer to believe that the authoritarian regime is a necessary evil in their life. You know, that it's actually not that this thing is responsible for all their suffering and then gave itself legitimacy through creating more suffering, which you see in the film, this idea that, you know, we're going to make them afraid to show that they need us and whatever. There's also a few little elements going on in this film where some of the main figures in the party are tied to pharmaceutical industries or pharmaceutical companies that they were trying to find some kind of medication for the virus that they were experimenting on people with.
I don't like these questions. These are making me uncomfortable. I think your questions might be transphobic.
I think so too. I think
Because listen, it's a free vaccine. The vaccine's free.
Get 50.
Simultaneously free, but somehow also Pfizer has made, I think it's something like $30 billion or something this year. So that's interesting how something can be free. But we won't get into that. It is free.
No.
I understand that people can get it for free, but someone's paying for it. And
there is no free. That's the problem, you know, with these ideas of free, is that there is no such thing as free. Someone paid for it somewhere, and it's actually fucking us also, because these things, the research and whatnot, is largely taxpayer funded for a lot of these, not just this, but other medications too. So, you know, typical shit. We pay for the development and we pay for the product. Win-win. Anyway, so yeah, the question here is, would anybody want to know? And I think to a certain degree, people don't want to know how deep shit goes. Like, I don't think people want to think about how it's very likely that the pandemic wasn't an accident of nature. Let's put it that way. You know, not that kind of accident. That there's actually some genuine negligence and perhaps even some corruption involved in the 2 years of interruption and disruption to your life. I think that to a certain degree, people don't even want to grapple with the complexity of how much, this whole thing can be unraveled, like how many interests are involved, because I think it makes people feel powerless. And I think it's like it's much easier to say, you know what the problem is? Those people that won't wear a mask, or this pandemic would be over if those people just got the vaccine. It's like, nobody. The gravy train ain't never gonna stop unless someone stops it. Like, that's not, it's always easier to blame people closer to you. I think it makes sense. I think that's something that the any person can fathom, which is these individuals are at fault. It's a lot harder to fathom that there's like a bunch of, scientists collaborating on to make a virus more deadly, and then accidentally it gets out, and then accidentally it comes over here, and then oops, all these people have stocks in the same company that is going to create the cure, and then the cure is forced, and also you're having to pay for the development of the cure. Like, this goes to so many levels, and I don't know all of that. I don't even get into all of that because I just like kind of by de facto I'm like, yeah, no, it's probably corrupt. Like, you can just kind of maybe guess that it's corrupt when it gets that deep. So I don't think people want to know, because I think it's like people want to live their everyday lives also, like no one wants to spend, like, not everybody is Alex Jones. We can't spend like our everyday looking into the annals of government logs and whatever. And
well, I like to do it.
And I think there are people that do.
Yeah, and I think there are a lot of people that do like to do it, and there's going to be more of them that like to do it when the alternative, the kind of narrative like, don't look over this way, it's all good, it's probably just an animal or something that did it, even though they can't find that link and they haven't been able to, and it's 2 years in. I understand it becomes tiring. And it certainly becomes, maybe you have to have a certain mindset to not worry about looking into what may or may not be the case. I understand people want to live their lives, but my concern is that if some of the things that happened happen again, then we can't afford to just look away.